seeing me use, I had no idea what I was going to do with this page. It's one of the pages I've had to reinforce due to pouring ink on a previous page and having it wrecked like a whole signature. So I've watched enough Vicky Pavanue videos to know that she does this for almost every page she does. And look, it's not the first time I've done this, long before I ever watched one of her videos, but I thought to myself, no, I really feel like doing something and I have no idea where this is going. So I am literally sitting there going, I need to just think about this and I just do what I feel. So I'm just using some of that excess paint. I put some Schmink ink into the gesso to colorize it. I love that idea, and now I'm just using a baby wipe just to wipe the excess of it off. I love the way that works too, because that Tim Holtz tissue paper, it's not really tissue, it's more like a waxy type of paper, so it's actually really quite strong, which I really like. So now I'm getting a Tim Holtz stencil, which is clockwork, and I'm just using some light modelling paste and I'm putting it on very thin. It's going to dry a little bit translucent, and I wanted to continue the pattern all the way down. That's the only thing I've got with some of Tim's stencils, is I actually think they should be like a standard length journal, not a tag size. I think they should be a little bit longer, but that's alright. I'm just cleaning it off. Whenever you use modelling paste or whatever, you need to clean it off immediately. You can't leave it like you can with ink or with thin paint. So now I'm going to use a little bit of gesso, and this is a thicker type of gesso that I've got, and I didn't mind that it came out a little bit messy, and I'm cleaning that off as well. And I'm using the rule of 3 there, so I've got 3 spots of it, and I'm just giving a dry off. It didn't dry quickly enough, so in the end I just decided to turn the camera off and let it dry naturally and come back to it later. This was done in quite a lot of steps. It's sped up 6 times, so it's about 15 minutes long, so 6 times 15. It took me about an hour and a half to do this over 2 days. So all I did was I got some Canson coloured paper, which is a little bit thicker than normal printer paper, and I've used it in that really kind of manila folder, raw manila folder colour, and I printed a number of free printable images off Google in clocks. I had an idea to use clocks, and you know, sometimes I think to myself, well, you know, you could buy stamps for these, but I wouldn't do this all the time. But I wanted to have them in all different kinds of angles and shapes and sizes, and with using the Google images I could manipulate them to the way that I wanted, and that was essentially the picture I'd seen in my head. And because I had covered them in matte gel medium, I can now use my pip markers over the top. It took me a little while to find them, but you know, and then just use it because it's suddenly a non-porous surface, so I'm able to just gradually build up the layers of colour in these. And I will eventually cut the middle of those little the little rings at the top. Now it takes me a while to find something. These are the stamps I use the most, and I use a lot of these stamps a lot, so they sit in there. Actually, I should put some of them away, but I find that as soon as I put something away, I pull it out and use it again, which is just weird. So I found my crackle stamp, and all I wanted to do was just put a little bit of age onto 2 of the clocks, and then I thought about it and went, oh yeah, I'd really like to add crackle to the actual spread. So I just added a little bit of crackle to it, not a lot. And not having it mounted on a Perspex block made it mouldable, because I'm getting near the end of the book now, and of course they're not lying flat anymore. So now I'm just using a little bit of antique paper, and I'm going to wipe some of it off because I don't want it heavy. And I'm again using Pip pens in black and greys and browns, just to colorise and shadow in some of the clocks and just give them a little bit of depth and dimension. But I didn't want them looking white, so that's why I used the Canson coloured paper, and then finally I was able to add some nice depth to them. And I'm going to cut out one of them. I think I'm only going to cut out one, because of course you can see my head here. My hair's looking particularly red. So, and I think I turned the camera off for the next one because I thought, oh, you really don't need to see my head again while I cut out the next one. And I just get a little file and file the edges out, just gently. Yep. And so what I've done is I've just stuck them together at the back, just with a little bit of glue, not heavily, but now I'm using matte gel medium to actually adhere them down. And of course they curl a little bit because it's a couple of layers there and it's over the gesso. So I sit there and I make sure that the edges stay down as it dries. And I'm liking where that's going so far. And the idea is formed at this point. Yep, the idea is definitely formed. So this is the grey, it's like slate grey Delusion spray, and I just wanted to add some dimension. And of course you can wipe it off, and I'm just using a tissue, I'm not using a baby wipe, but I just wanted some depth. And then while it's still wet, I'm getting a Payne's Grey Neo Colour crayon, and I'm just making that really stand out, and I'm going to rub that in. And when I rub it in, it goes into the crevices a bit too much, so I'm getting a white oil pastel out, and that will stay. Oh no, I'm doing the silver first. So I've got some really nice chroma acryl silver paint. It's got a particularly nice sheen, and I'm just putting it on with the Tim Holtz applicator because I wanted it very, very thin. You imagine if I tried to do that with a brush. It almost looks like I've used a silver ink pad. So now I'm just re-whitening those marks in with an oil pastel, and that won't move now because it's oil, and nothing else will go on top of that. And it just adds in a little bit of further dimension, makes it look quite distressed and worn, like slate, worn slate, which I liked. So now I'm just using my big brush Faber-Castell pit marker, because of course that whole surface has been done with matte medium, which means it's now non-porous and I can sit there and do this. And I'm just gradually deepening the shadows. The light's coming from the right across diagonally, so of course all my shadows are on the left, and I'm just deepening them in and not smudging them in so much in certain areas to deepen those shadows. Just keep redoing it and redoing it until I've got the depth of colour that I want. I really like that. They seem to be really popping out of the page now. So I decided that I would do a little bit of a checkered border, but I'm just using ink, and not all the way along, just a little bit. So I'm taking note of where the elements are and not going over the top of them, and making sure that I look after the book in the fold. This takes me a little while because I'm going to figure out, I want to do the whole word, and then it's always really good when you're using stamps like this to make the word up and then have a look and see if you like the spacing in between the letters. So I pre-stamped it on here and thought, no, that's too far apart, so I just took them all off, and I'm just going to do it one letter at a time. I've drawn my lines in and ruled them in so I can see my thin pencil line, and I didn't even have to rub them out because of course in the scheme of things in the background you can't see them. And I wanted them, you can see I wanted them much closer together. And I really love that you can, with them singly like that, you can just go over and restamp them if you don't do a great impression the first time. And my saying is, time waits for no one. I kind of feel like that at the moment because, you know, I've had some things going on for me in my life, and you know, I've been battling with a bit of pain and stuff lately, and it's as I get older. So it waits for no one. And I was kind of feeling that. There's that kind of slightly darker vibe in this page, but I really like it. It's quite vintage and earthy, and yeah. So now I looked at those the letters and loved the fact that there was something in the middle. I didn't want to use a white gel pen. I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle than that, so I just used a white pencil and really whitened those letters up, because they're actually done over tissue paper that's got black printing on it, and of course I've added some white highlights in for the light sources just to add a little bit further realism. And then I decided that I was going to do some scribbly white checkers in between those black, just to accentuate them a little bit more and make them look a little bit smudgy, because it's done with a pencil, so it's not done with ink, so it's not really perfect. It's just a little bit scribbly and smudgy in between the black checkers. And then when I'm finished that, I'm just going to pull out my new date stamp. Finally got myself a little date stamp. Put the date in, because I often forget when I do things, and sign it, and we're done. Hope you enjoy the page. See you next time.